What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Trevi here from WotS. Welcome to another awesome WotS battle report. This time, another game from CaptainCon Masters. This is round 3. We're 3 rounds in, we're at the semifinals, and the competition is almost over. This time we have Mr. Greg Collinson on camera once again from Party Foul, great man himself, playing Wurmwood, Tree of Fate, as well as Cassius the Oathkeeper. On the other side of the table, we have the one and only Jake Van Meter, who plays this game sometimes, I hear. So, like I said before, we have Wurmwood on Greg's side, bringing the same list that we saw in the previous round versus Scott Tallarico. That includes 2 Wold Weirds, a Pureblood Warpwolf, Gitterix, Lanissa Rasil, 2 Gremlin Swarms, 2 Organ Bokors, Blackclad Stone Shaper, Swamp Gobber Chef, Bellows Crew, 2 Sentry Stone units, and a unit of Shifting Stones. So very solo-heavy Cassius list. Brings a lot of guns in the Pureblood, and those 2 Wold Weirds can put out a lot of firepower if it needs to, and then be protected by those Ogren Bokors. The Bokors can come back and hit really hard alongside Gitterix if they want to crack armor. And for the most part, I think between Rapid Growth, the Sentry Stone trees, as well as the Swamp Gobber Cloud, this list can tank or brick up pretty well and hide behind its forest/cloud wall. Continue to pump those shots out and just do tons of damage. Now, we're not seeing Wurmwood or any of those stones advance deploy this game because Jake's side of the table, he's brought a Ravens of War theme force. So we're already seeing another theme force on the table. In the last 2 rounds, we've seen theme forces. We've seen Kingmakers out of Charles Soong. Scott Tallarico brought a Winter Guard Command theme force, and now we're going to see Ravens of War. And this is a very interesting choice on Jake's part. It's specifically to bring a hard counter to Wurmwood and potentially Una too as well. But what Jake's bringing is essentially a very battle group heavy Ravens of War list. Normally, Ravens of War focuses on light infantry. It brings those ambushing grotesques. It brings a lot of striders. But what Jake's decided to do today is bring 5 heavies in his battle group. He's got 2 Angelii, 2 Neraphs, as well as a Naga Night Lurker, and a Seraph. And then support solos, so Forsaken, Strider, Deathstalkers, and a Sorcerer's on Hellion for free charges on all the War Beasts. And what this list is going to do is basically just function right normally to a regular Legion list, but deny that advanced deploy to enemies who are really counting on it, especially Wurmwood and Cassius. Those guys not being able to advance deploy puts them way farther back on the field. They get a lot less board presence. Wurmwood's tough enough to move around as it is, and starting 6 inches further down behind the table makes it really rough for him to get up in the game. Those Sentry Stones are also not going to be relevant on scenario for a long time because they're going to have to teleport up 5 inches at a time and slowly move up the table. So, Jake bringing a very hard counter to Greg's list here. Interesting that Greg still decided to play Wurmwood. I think he might have been expecting Jake's other list since Jake is locking himself in this round. He's played Fyanna 3 times so far, this round included. So, yeah, so we're seeing Greg move up the table right now. Scenario obviously is recon, so there's that center zone with each player has an objective in it. Players can destroy the enemy objective for a point. Control the zone for a point, dominate the zone for 2 points, or dominate one of the side flags for a single point, 5 points to win. No kill box in this one, so that is going to help these guys out quite a bit, especially with the long threat ranges out of both Fyanna and Wurmwood with Hellmouths and with Strangleholds. So we're seeing Greg move up the table. He's hiding Wurmwood pretty defensively behind the forest and that rapid growth. I'm not sure what he's really worried about this turn. I think potentially some shots from the Deathstalkers, but they're not going to do a ton of damage, and he has Ogre and Bokors to sort of spread that damage out a little bit if he needs to. But he's playing very defensively so far, keeping Wurmwood pretty far back, but still in a relatively dominant position. That wall is going to be a big deal. Whichever player can get to that wall first, especially with Fyanna with her high defense War Beasts, if she can get up to that wall and claim it for the Legion of Everblight, she can push the defense on those War Beasts through the roof. She can feed on them potentially, and Greg's going to be looking at defense 19 or 21 heavies with dodge if he's trying to attack over that wall. So that's going to be pretty rough if Greg wants to do any work taking that wall into account. We're seeing some initial shots from Jake's Deathstalkers here. It looks like taking out some mannequins. Not a ton. Those mannequins are just going to come back in the maintenance phase, so not a lot of work done there. But those Deathstalkers are going to be really annoying. Greg's going to have to devote resources to taking them out, and especially that one on the hill is going to be very high defense against the sprays off the mannequins if they're not able to get on the hill. And those guys can continue to pick out at sentry stones or at shifting stones, and the Ogre and Bokors can protect them for a little bit, but that's not really a shot that an Ogre and Bokor wants to take just for 1 point, especially if it's not going into any important support models. So we have Jake's list moving up very hard here. What's interesting about Jake's list is because it's a theme force, it's only going to allow those flying war beasts. Jake carefully pre-measuring, so he's going to be able to get onto Greg's objective in the subsequent turn. So he can push very hard for scenario if he wants to. And I think he can potentially even walk to that objective if Greg decides to shield it with Wurmwood's feet or with rapid growth. And so Jake could potentially just move in and bully scenario very hard here, feet on turn 2 with Fyanna, and just push these war beasts right up the table. But we're not seeing any Hellmouths off Jake's side. Normally, most Legion lists, I think, contain Hellmouths because they are so strong on scenario and a very good defensive unit. But because he's in the theme force, he's sacrificing the ability to take those Hellmouths, and they do go crazy with Fury and Iron Flesh, so Fyanna does love taking them. But in this particular matchup with the denial of advanced deploy on Greg's models, I think that's probably the right call. Jake did say that he was building this Fyanna list specifically for circle players to deny that advanced deploy, and Wurmwood in particular. Wurmwood obviously very reliant on that, but the list pretty strong into other matchups as well. So we got some moves out of Greg here. It looks like Cassius is running up to the center there to get some spells off. I assume he's going to try to stranglehold the foremost heavies so that they're not going to be able to get in too early. We have some sprays for mannequins going into what looks like the Seraph. Or perhaps, no, it's a Nerif. It's a Nerif. There's 2 Nerifs and 1 Seraph in this list. Nerif's not an often seen war beast, but pretty great with Fyanna. She can buff their hitting power up to pretty high powers, power 19, I think, with Fury. And then with the free charges from the Sorceress on Hellion, then they can actually act like they have 4 Fury. They're heavy with 4 Fury. Especially if they get the auto hit with their initial attack. So Mannequin's getting lucky there, taking out the Deathstalker on the top side on the hill. And now we're going to see some other stuff move, I guess. Everybody getting out of the way for the tree. Getorix putting up Spiny Growth. The Pureblood taking some sprays as well. So we're seeing a lot of shooting out of this list. I assume we're going to see some Wold Weirds taking some shots as well. Here they go. And it looks potentially... I think he's just... Greg's just boosting the hits. Those Nerifs only armor 16. They're going to take a lot of damage from POW 12s. I don't know where Jake's upkeeps are, but it doesn't look like Greg's getting any purgation off those Wold Weird attacks just yet. Looks like the Stone Shaper's moving up to pull some Fury off of those Wold Weirds. Now we have the Shifting Stones moving up, it looks like. They're going to be put into a position to allow Getorix to teleport out over that wall if he needs to. And that is going to allow him to get in on any of those war beasts and move up. But I think we're going to see a Fyanna feet turn on this next turn. I'm not sure if Greg is going to have the accuracy to deal with that. So if Fyanna moves up, takes that wall, potentially gets a couple of attacks out, unless we see a feat with Wurmwood here, and definitely some strangleholds, I assume, are going to come out. Then Greg's going to be swinging with like Mat 7 attacks at these defense 17 war beasts, and if he misses any, he's out of luck. They dodge away. He doesn't have Primal in his list, if I remember correctly. So we're not going to see it. I guess the Wild Argus can help a little bit to reduce those war beasts to base defense 7, so that helps if he's able to get into position, but I have a tough time seeing if it's more than one heavy that gets hit by the Wild Argus Animus. It isn't range to be teleported up, so that's helpful. So we might see it be teleported up, Doppler Bark on some of these war beasts, and then Getorix potentially go and try to clear them out. But we'll see how it goes. We did see a Wurmwood feat here, and it looks like he did put 2 Strangleholds out on those front 2 Angelii, I think. Now, I don't know if that puts Cassius in threat range of one of the Nerfs there. One of the Nerfs did get pretty shot up, so it might be pretty heavily damaged. But if we see Cassius go down here, this seems like a pretty bad situation for Wurmwood to be in. So we have, looks like the Seraph moving up, shooting at Cassius. Gets within 3 inches to see through the forest, hits him, flares him. I don't think any Ogre and Bokors are in range to shield guard, so he's just going to have to eat all that damage. And it does look like he's slipstreamed up a Nerf, so we might see the Nerf go into Cassius this turn as well. Or potentially he could move up to that proxy base and try to attack the Pureblood. Either way, it doesn't seem great for Greg. The last thing Wurmwood wants to have is losing Warbeasts on his feet turn. And then Fyanna's going to feat. She's going to come down, and Greg's not really going to have enough to deal too much damage. He might take a heavy or two with Getrix, and then he's going to have to deal with the repercussions of that. So we do have an Aerith going into the Pureblood. It looks like it's Furied, and it takes the Pureblood right off the table. Oh my god. So it's going to sprint away. I think it stays in melee range of those mannequins, so not to take any more free strikes. That Nerf already was shot up, so it does. It has taken significant amount of damage. Oh, no, it looks like it's just going to move behind the wall there. So it might take free strikes, but if Fyanna feated it, they might just miss. We have the Deathstalker moving in and just taking those mannequins out as well. And then the Sorceress on Hellion moving up. And I guess just to be in the way. She's going to take up real estate around that wall so that Greg's not going to be able to get models around the edge of it to ignore the defense bonus. It looks like the Nerf, second Nerf's moving up, killing some models in the front there, and then running back behind that wall. Fyanna's putting her feet up. All those Warbeasts are hiding behind that wall, and they are going to be very high defense. So I think Greg's just going to basically have to weather the storm. Fyanna, behind all those heavy Warbeasts, looks like she's relatively safe, camping 2, I think, and everything just moving up. So we're seeing like a base defense 17 on her army right now. The wall is going to help quite a bit. We might see some play from that Wild Argus moving up. It could potentially paralyze 2 Warbeasts in the front there. And allow Getrix to take them out. But I don't know if that's going to help Greg come back from this attrition rut he's going to be in. If Getrix can take 2 heavy Warbeasts out, which is a very big ask, I don't know if the positioning is going to be right for that at all, then Getrix probably dies to an Angelius or a Nerf on the swing back, and then Greg's basically just got an Ogre and Bokor to take things out. Cassius is already dead, it looks like. So Wurmwood's going to have to be teleported around by Shifting Stones in order to get any spells out, and then he's in danger. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Greg might just pull out this turn, try to play very cagey, stay out of threat ranges, and wait for next turn when things are better to go in with Getrix and go in with those heavy hitters with Curse of Shadows. He did already damage an Aerith, so he could potentially knock that out later. But we'll see what he decides to do. It looks like we have some sprays going out first. It's triggering some dodges. The Nerf's just getting behind the wall into a more defensive position. That is one big part of Fyanna's feat that Greg's going to have to worry about, is any of those attacks he misses can potentially give Jake extra movement, move models out of melee range to be attacked, move into threat ranges that they weren't before. It's a very flexible ability, not always super useful. Greg could potentially try to box models in with mannequins or with those free models, stop landing zones with the incorporeal gremlin swarms. But we'll see what he decides to do. It looks like mannequins are moving up and just deciding to take more sprays. Probably not going to hit anything. Needing 13s, I think, on any of those heavies. I think he just decides not even to make attacks with them. So there you go. Killing some of his own models to get souls on the Wurmwood. So that next turn he's going to have, he's going to be able to get a bigger turn. But he is killing his own gremlin swarms, it looks like. And the Gobber Chef as well. So filling Wurmwood up on souls. That's going to help it with Ghost Shield as well, if Wurmwood is in danger. We have mannequins moving up and looks like trying to take out the Strider Deathstalker there in the center. He's moved Getorix forward, and then charges him in. I think that was a Hellmouth that we saw move Getorix forward there from Wurmwood. So Getorix moving in on the Sorceress, kills the Sorceress, but I don't think he has range to attack anything else. So he's killed a solo this turn. So that's good. That's something, I guess. Oh, and then it looks like he finishes off that narrative too. Okay, so one heavy down from Getorix, but Getorix is in a pretty compromising position here. It looks like he probably was able to get past the wall with the angle from that Hellmouth. But there are still a Nerf and 2 Angelii right there to take Getorix out. So I don't know if this was a particularly good trade. I think the play would have been to move Getorix back and try to take any models that came in on Greg's objective and then on Greg's support staff in the back there, and potentially move even farther forward with those the solos or the Ogre and Bokors, jam things up with the Gremlin Swarms. There's not a lot of attacks on Jake's side of the table to kill those Gremlin Swarms. Looks like we have a Wraithbane, or excuse me, a Shadowbind on Getorix from the Naga Nightlurker. He rolled a crit to hit, and that's probably going to spell Getorix's death. One thing that these Angelii really need is to be able to hit. If they need that boosted 8, it's really rough. If they miss the armor pierce, it's really bad for them. But if that Naga hits that crit Shadowbind, it could potentially hit with the Seraph as well and reduce Getorix's defense by 5. And that's probably going to spell his end here. So it looks like the Seraph has gone and shot a bunch of things. Taking out some models. We have one Angelii moving in to armor pierce. Hits the armor pierce on Getorix, doing a ton of damage. Swinging a second time. Rolling pretty good for damage. It looks like Getorix might be Spiny Growth as well, so that's something. He's dealing a couple points of damage back from Spiny Growth. Here comes, I believe that's a proxy base for the second Angelius. And that will probably be enough to finish Getorix off. So the second Angelius is moving in and charging the Woldweird, it looks like. Hits him for a bunch of damage. Takes him right off the table. Those guys don't have a ton of hit points. Takes a second attack on Getorix and kills him as well. So that is a big swing. Greg entirely out of heavies. One Woldweird down. And really only killed a Nerif for it. And those Nerifs, they're so cheap. They trade up so hard. If that Nerif's able to get a heavy before it goes down, that's a big deal. And I'm not sure if Greg's going to be able to come back from this. I think he has to start looking for an assassination run. I don't know if he has enough long-range threats to be able to do it. He did fill Wurmwood up with souls last turn, so that's good. But without Cassius, it's tough for him to cast spells. He doesn't really have the angles. He could potentially try to teleport Wurmwood somewhere. But if Jake plays very cagey with Fyanna, which it doesn't look like he's doing, he's actually moving up into the zone, but he's under a 3 camp, which is pretty heavy. So a pretty heavy camp there. I think there's one Woldweird left on the table. It looks like it's down on the lower side there, just below his objective. So if you could potentially Hellmouth Fyanna around the edge of those heavies, he could get a couple of attacks on her. I assume she doesn't have a buff on her. It doesn't look like there's a token next to her. So he can maybe get a Hellmouth to pull her around the edge so that the Woldweird can shoot at her. I assume the Woldweird's empty on Fury now that all of Greg's heavies are dead. So it's going to be able to boost a couple shots. If he can pull it into range to aim, that's something. And it looks like that's probably what he's going to try to do here. And then he can maybe get a spray off of a mannequin on her. So that's 3 attacks, and he probably has to get damage with the Hellmouth and potentially a Stranglehold. But that doesn't seem like a great assassination run, but I think it's all he has here. So he's going for it. It looks like he's running a mannequin to get in there, so he's not going to get any mannequin sprays. So it might just be down to this Woldweird and any damage he can get through spells. So it looks like Greg has decided to run that mannequin in. He's run the mannequin to the proxy base next to the Seraph there, and then the Sentry Stone has teleported up to keep that mannequin in command. Interestingly enough, he can't actually cast any spells on it if it is out of command. So Wurmwood moves up to that proxy base. Hellmouths Fyanna forward, gets a couple points of damage on her, I assume, from the Hellmouth, and then I think starts shooting Strangleholds is what we got going on. So he's boosting damage for the Hellmouth. Forces 1 transfer off Fyanna. Looks like a big damage roll there. And then he's starting to roll Strangleholds. Gets a couple more points, but not forcing any transfers. So Fyanna's still sitting on 2 transfers. And I think Wurmwood has enough Fury for 1 more unboosted Hellmouth. So he throws it and does a couple more damage as well. So Fyanna's still on 2 transfers. I don't think she's in much danger here. We have an attack from the Stone Shaper moving in, but ends up missing. So that's going to trigger dodge on Fyanna. She's going to move out of the way. I think moves up to the wall to get cover from any additional attacks that come in. And that is probably the end of this assassination run. Fyanna has dodge innately. She doesn't need it to get it from the feet. But with that cover there, that Woldwyr's not going to be able to really hit her. And Greg can't really get through 2 transfers. So he ends up charging into that Angelius with the Wild Argus, Doppler bringing it to reduce its defense, and then the Woldwyr takes its attacks and kills the Angelius. So ends Greg killing 1 model, failing that assassination run though, and I think that's probably gonna be game. Wurmwood's in the center of the table there. He is at black proxy base next to the wall, so he's right up in the middle. The Ogre and Bokors run up to hopefully protect him, but I don't think it's gonna matter. We have an Angelius in range to armor pierce, and it boosts its armor pierce. Does a bunch of damage, boosts its second damage roll, and ends up killing Wurmwood right there and there. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. The end of the second round of, or excuse me, the second to last round of CaptainCon Masters. The semifinal round is over. I hope you guys enjoyed this battle report. Interesting game. We saw Greg just get pushed back by the combination of the Theme Force benefit that removes all of his advanced deployment, and Jake playing very aggressively to take that wall, push up with Fyanna's feet, and take heavies on Wurmwood's feet turn, which is not what Wurmwood wants to see at all. Greg failing that assassination run on the swing back there, and then getting killed for his trouble. But I hope you guys enjoyed this battle report. Please stay tuned for the Masters, the finals of Masters coming very soon. If you guys like my battle reports and my tournament reports, please consider subscribing to my channel, as well as heading on over to patreon.com/wayoftheswan and supporting my Patreon if you want to see new battle reports in the future. Anyway, again, I hope you enjoyed. Keep it classy, folks.